One America's John Hines caught up with North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows on Capitol Hill and got his answer.
I'm here with Congressman Mark Meadows from North Carolina, the 11th District, correct? And that is in western North Carolina, the mountains. And Congressman, you, of course, are a very prominent member of the House Freedom Caucus. Talk about the House Freedom Caucus, the future you have. You have President Trump, a conservative. Presumably, you've achieved one of your big goals. And so is your role now to hold his feet to the fire, or do you declare victory and go home, sir?
Well, I think what it is really to complete the work. You know, Donald Trump talked about draining the swamp, and it's all about the American people versus the establishment here in Washington, D.C. And so a victory on November 8th doesn't necessarily translate to the fact that everything has changed. So I know a number of us from the House Freedom Caucus met last night. We will be meeting again today on how to make sure that the first 100 days are not only the most productive in modern history, but also how we make sure that Donald Trump actually is able to keep his campaign promises to the American people, because part of that was on November 8th, but now the real hard work comes in the first 6 months to make sure that we deliver on that, and the Freedom Caucus is poised to work hand in glove with President-elect Trump to do that.
Now, of course, there was a rumor that the Freedom Caucus may not support Paul Ryan as Speaker. Is there any foundation to that rumor? Is that in any way accurate?
You know, I think really the elections for leadership are going to happen here in the next 48 hours. And Donald Trump and the Freedom Caucus are focused on one thing, and it's not leadership elections, it's the American people. And so for us, it's all about making sure that what we do is deliver on those promises. And so any focus on leadership and the fights therein would really be misplaced, because most Americans could care less who our leadership is as long as it makes a difference to them back home on Main Street. And so for us, it's really about finding 100 different regulations that should be repealed on day one. We're working on that already. And so I can tell you that I don't know of a real competitive race on any of the House leadership races. We're all trying to work together to make sure that the agenda that's set forth is one that is accomplished.
One leadership post I think will change is the head of the Congressional Committee, which helps to elect House members, Republicans. Talk about that a little bit, if you would.
You know, we've got a race for the NRCC. There's a few other races for Secretary and I think Vice Chair of the conference. And so as we look at that, it's fundamentally how can we make sure that we have the resources there that are necessary to compete both in moderate and conservative districts. And I think any really faction or friction that may be there is really more on a strategic plan. How do we move going forward to make sure that we have the resources? I think a number of us that are more conservative believe that we have to have the resources for both conservative and moderate members. And so both Steve Stivers and Roger Williams will be making that case. And that's probably going to be the most competitive race that we see.
And that election may happen tomorrow, apparently.
It will. I mean, you know, within the next 24 hours, that's going to happen. The only election that actually has to have another vote would be the vote for Speaker. That will happen on the first day of the 115th Congress. And so, but really for all practical purposes, leadership elections will be decided within the next 24 hours, and then the rules that we abide by within the next 72 hours. So it's really working hard to make sure that we're prepared for an agenda for the American people going forward.
And sir, finally, one thing that is a little bit of business which is left over from several weeks ago, IRS Commissioner John Koskinen. What's his future with relationship to the House Freedom Caucus? Of course, some of your members have called for his impeachment.
Well, I don't see an impeachment happening, just because even though he technically would serve on until November of 2017 as his term, Commissioner Koskinen has made it real clear that he serves at the pleasure of the president, and whether that is this president or the next president, I think that at this point he's probably looking at an exit strategy, as President-elect Trump will be looking to replace Commissioner Koskinen. So I don't see an impeachment happening, just because the fuse in terms of his tenure is probably gotten a lot shorter.
That is Congressman Mark Meadows from the 11th Congressional District of North Carolina, a very prominent member of the House Freedom Caucus and indeed one of the leaders of that organization, talking about their role in the Trump administration. And thank you very much, Congressman. Good talking to you.
It's been great to be with you. Thanks so much.